Welcome to the deep dive. So if you're currently, deep in the journey of learning English, and it's fascinating, definitely challenging, sometimes really frustrating, you probably know that exact moment.
Oh, I think we all do.
Yeah, that moment of truth, right? The one that kind of separates learners who keep progressing from those who maybe get a bit stuck.
Mm-hmm.
It's when, say, a native speaker starts talking to you at their normal speed, or maybe you try watching a movie without subtitles.
Suddenly it hits.
Exactly. Your brain just slams on the brakes, hits the panic button, and that thought just flashes. Wait, hang on. What did they actually just say?
It's probably the single most common hurdle, the biggest wall that almost every language learner encounters at some point. Reading and writing, they have their own complexities for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But they give you, the learner, a sense of control. You can pause, right?
Yeah.
You can grab a dictionary, look up a word, reread a sentence, take your time.
You're in the driver's seat.
Precisely. But listening, that throws you right into the deep end. It's real time. It's often high pressure. You're decoding on the fly.
There's no pause button in a real conversation.
Exactly. And the risk of information overload is incredibly high. You're trying to process the sounds, figure out the meaning, understand the context, maybe read body language all at the same time. It's a lot.
It really is. And that specific feeling, that panic, that, uh-oh, I'm lost feeling, that's exactly what we're here to tackle today.
Good.
Our mission for this deep dive is to cut through all that complexity surrounding listening practice. We've gone through a really practical set of source materials, looking for the best advice. And we've pulled out what we think are the 10 most powerful, most proven strategies. Think of it as a kind of structured roadmap designed specifically for you, the learner, to help you boost those listening skills, maybe faster than you thought possible.
Yeah, and we're really focused on the practical side here.
Right. We're not interested in just vague general advice like listen more. We're hunting for those specific, actionable techniques, the things you can actually do to move beyond just passively, hearing English noise in the background.
Towards actually understanding it.
Towards true active comprehension. That's the goal.
And what's really interesting about the source material we looked at is that it's not promising some kind of magic bullet or secret shortcut.
No quick fixes here.
Not really.
Yeah.
It's more grounded in, applied cognitive science, how the brain actually learns language. The core idea, the philosophy that really underpins all these successful strategies is making that definite shift.
The shift from
passive exposure, like, having the TV on in English while you're doing chores, not really paying attention to its structured active engagement. You have to engage with it.
Makes sense.
And look, if you really take these 10 tips on board and truly commit to 3 fundamental keys, which are consistency, active engagement, and actually finding some genuine enjoyment in the process.
Enjoyment, right. That's important too.
It's crucial. If you do those things, then the results, they aren't just likely. The sources suggest they're pretty much inevitable. You will improve.
Okay. Inevitable results. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
So let's start unpacking this. We're beginning with what we're calling the foundational habits.
Right. The bedrock.
Yeah, these first 2 tips are kind of like the engine room, aren't they? They provide the fuel and the basic structure that lets all the other techniques actually work effectively.
Couldn't have put it better myself. They lay the groundwork.
So tip 1, it sounds almost deceptively simple, but apparently its power is all in the execution. It's
listen every day.
Every single day.
The source material is really strong on this. It calls consistency the, quote, secret ingredient. And crucially, it defines the commitment needed. It says just 10 to 15 minutes daily. That's enough.
Yeah, and that short time commitment, or maybe the lack of a huge time commitment, that's the really critical detail here, I think.
Why is that? Well, so many learners think they need to, block out these massive, intensive 2-hour study sessions. Like every Sunday afternoon, they're going to sit down and grind it out.
I've definitely tried that approach.
We all have. And maybe you manage it once, maybe twice. But then life gets in the way, right? Things come up. And you end up with this very sporadic start-stop kind of practice.
Yeah, inconsistent.
Exactly. And that inconsistency is actually highly inefficient for how our brains process and learn language patterns. It just doesn't stick as well.
Okay, I can see the argument for that daily microdose, that 10-15 minutes. But honestly, if I'm only doing 10 minutes, am I really absorbing anything significant, or am I just sort of skimming the surface? Don't we also need some longer, maybe deeper immersion sessions sometimes?
That's a fair question, a really necessary challenge to the idea. And yes, longer sessions have their place, definitely. A long, sporadic session might give you a big burst of input, a lot of data at once. But the problem is, The brain starts forgetting those newly encountered patterns almost immediately if they're not reinforced. Think of language learning like building or maybe reinforcing a bridge in your mind.
Okay, a mental bridge.
Yeah, connecting sounds to meaning. Daily exposure, even if it's just for that brief 10 or 15 minutes, allows your brain to constantly adjust and adapt. It gets used to the specific cadence, the rhythm, the unique sound patterns of English.
So it's not just about vocabulary, it's the music of the language.
Yes, precisely. It's about maintaining and reinforcing those connections. Languages have what linguists call prosody, the patterns of stress, rhythm, intonation. It's the melody.
Right.
By exposing yourself daily to short bits of content, maybe a quick YouTube explainer video, a short news update, a snippet from an English podcast like this one, you're consistently strengthening the neural pathways your brain uses to process those specific language sounds. You are literally building and, maybe more importantly, maintaining that mental bridge over the sound gap. You're stopping your brain from forgetting the patterns it learned yesterday.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So the cumulative effect of 10 minutes every day is actually much, much better than trying to cram in, say, 3 hours once a week.
Vastly superior, according to the research. It's about consistency beating intensity over the long run for this kind of skill.
You're building muscle memory, but for your ears. I like that. Okay, that covers consistency. But how do you stay consistent? That often comes down to motivation, right?
Yeah.
Which leads us perfectly into tip 2. Choose topics you enjoy.
Yes. This is what we call the effortless learning engine when we were reviewing the sources.
Effortless learning engine. Nice.
It's the strategy that really dramatically lowers the cognitive hurdle, the mental effort involved. Because when the content itself is genuinely interesting to you, your brain is already switched on. It's motivated to absorb the information being presented.
Right.
And processing the foreign language, the English in this case, almost becomes secondary. It's less of a chore.
I really love that idea. Because it tackles the boredom factor head on, doesn't it? I mean, if you're forcing yourself to listen to some incredibly dry recording about, I don't know, municipal budgeting regulations, but your real passion is, say, ancient Roman history, or maybe fantasy novels, or even Premier League football.
Right.
Then you're fighting two battles at the same time. You've got the difficulty of the language itself, plus you're completely disengaged from the subject matter. It's a recipe for giving up.
Exactly right. The source material gave examples like football, movies, cooking shows, video game commentary. But the absolute key here is personalization. What do you find interesting?
It has to be specific to the individual learner.
Absolutely. Because when your focus shifts, when it moves away from struggling to decode every single grammatical structure and towards genuinely wanting to know the details of something you care about.
Like who won the match?
Or how do you make that amazing-looking cake?
Or what happens next in the game's storyline?
Precisely. When that happens, your attention span naturally increases. Your internal resistance, that feeling of, oof, this is hard work, it just drops away dramatically.
So the real goal shifts, doesn't it? It's not just, I need to practice my English listening. It becomes, I want to find out about X and I'll use English to do it.
That's the mindset shift. Learning almost becomes a byproduct of your interest.
You're not really practicing English anymore in that moment. You're engaging with your passion, and English just happens to be the transparent window you're looking through.
Well put.
And that fundamental shift in mindset, that enjoyment factor, that's what fuels the consistency we talked about in tip 1. The two work hand in hand.
They absolutely do. It creates a positive feedback loop.
Okay, so we've got our foundation. Listen every day. And make sure it's something you actually like listening to.
Right. So with that consistent base of daily, enjoyable listening, hopefully established, we then run into the next natural challenge.
Yeah.
The inevitable gaps in understanding, things you just don't catch.
Yeah, even with interesting content.
Exactly. And this is where what the sources call strategic scaffolding comes in. It's about using temporary aids, like supports when building something, to bridge that gap between what you're hearing and what you're actually comprehending.
Okay, scaffolding. I like that analogy.
And this brings us directly to tip 3. Use subtitles wisely.
Subtitles. A classic tool. And they are fantastic, aren't they? Especially when you're just starting out with more complex stuff like TV shows or films. That visual reinforcement, seeing the words on screen.
It's a powerful bridge.
It really is. It connects the sound you're hearing, the audio, directly with the written text, the visual. And that's vital for linking the spoken form of a word to the spelling you might already know from reading.
Totally agree. But the emphasis, and the source material was very clear on this, has to be on using them wisely.
Okay, wisely. What does that mean in practice? Because just turning them on isn't the whole story.
No, definitely not. It's a
Yeah.
crucial distinction.
That-
Because it's incredibly easy for a learner to fall into what we could call the reading trap.
The reading trap.
Yeah, where you're basically just reading the subtitles as they scroll past, and your ears kind of switch off. You stop actively listening.
Ah, I see. So you think you're practicing listening, but you're actually just practicing reading comprehension.
Exactly. You're not training your auditory decoding skills nearly as much as you think you are.
So what are the recommended stages then for using subtitles wisely? How do you avoid that trap?
Well, the source outlined a necessary progression, a kind of weaning process. Stage 1 is crucial. Avoid subtitles in your native language at all costs when learning English.
Why is that so bad?
Because if you're reading in your own language, your brain is doing zero processing work in English for listening. You're just reading a translation. You're bypassing the listening skill entirely.
Okay, so step 1, no native language subtitles. Got it.
Step 2, use English subtitles. This is where you make that vital connection we talked about, linking the sound to the spelling, the spoken word to the written word.
Right, the visual bridge.
Exactly. But then comes stage 3, and this is the most important step, the one people often skip, the slow transition away from them.
Okay, how does that work?
Once you feel reasonably comfortable with a specific piece of content, maybe you've watched a scene from a show or a short YouTube video with the English subtitles on once or twice, you must then challenge your ear. Watch it again, maybe immediately, but this time without the subtitles.
Take the training wheels off.
Precisely. That repetition, but without the safety net of the text, is absolutely essential. You have to force your ear to do the heavy lifting eventually. Otherwise, that visual cue just becomes a permanent crutch.
Yeah, it's like the difference between, I don't know, learning to swim with armbands on all the time versus actually learning to float and swim independently. You have to let go eventually.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
Exactly that. And this mental adjustment, this idea of not needing every piece of information perfectly, leads us directly into tip 4.
Okay, what's tip 4?
Focus on the big picture, not every single word. This strategy is specifically designed to help alleviate that paralyzing anxiety that often happens during real-time listening.
Oh, I know this one well. That obsessive need that learners often feel, that they must understand 100% of the vocabulary being used.
Yes, it's probably the biggest self-imposed roadblock for many intermediate learners especially.
Because let's be honest, in a fast-paced, natural native conversation, which is often filled with slang, reduced forms like gonna or wanna, idiomatic expressions, you're simply not going to catch every single word or phrase. It's just not realistic.
And critically, you don't actually need to catch every word. That's the key insight. The skill we're really trying to cultivate here is more like linguistic detection or inference.
Inference, okay.
The source material emphasizes that rather than panicking over that one word you missed, which then makes you miss the next 10 words.
Right, the snowball effect.
Exactly. Instead, you need to actively use context clues, your existing knowledge, and make educated guesses, inferences, to grasp the main idea, the overall message.
So what should we be listening for, if not every word?
Think about what native speakers subconsciously listen for. We listen for topic sentences or key phrases that signal the main point. We listen for the key verbs that tell us the action. We listen for conjunctions, words like but, however, so, therefore, because they signal a change in direction or conclusion.
They signpost the argument.
Exactly. And perhaps most importantly, we listen to the speaker's tone of voice and intonation. Is their voice rising or falling? Do they sound happy, angry, sarcastic? That often tells you more than the specific words.
So the real goal should be successful communication, understanding the gist, not achieving perfect word-for-word dictation in your head.
Absolutely. That's success defined in listening.
If I missed the exact idiom someone used, but I understood from their tone and the context that they were expressing, say, frustration or excitement, then I've actually succeeded in understanding them.
You absolutely have. The realistic goal is probably to understand, say, 75% to 80% of a natural exchange, and crucially, be able to accurately summarize the speaker's main point or intention afterwards.
Right.
Just internalizing that truth, accepting that you don't need 100%, takes enormous pressure off you as a learner. It transforms what can feel like a paralyzing experience into something much more manageable, more like a puzzle to solve.
Yeah, because if you're constantly trying to translate every single word in your head as you hear it,
You'll always fall behind.
you'll inevitably fall behind the natural speed of the conversation. You have to learn to process bigger chunks of meaning, not individual words.
Processing chunks of meaning, that's the skill.
And processing those chunks is definitely easier if you can, well, sometimes slow things down a bit.
Which is a perfect segue into tip 8 from our list, slow down the audio.
Ah, yes. This is a huge technical advantage we have today that learners in the past didn't.
For sure, CDs didn't have speed control.
No.
Exactly. But now, pretty much every major media platform, YouTube, Netflix, other streaming services, nearly all podcast apps, they provide playback speed control.
Usually 0.75x, 0.5x, sometimes even finer control.
Right. And the source suggests making very specific, targeted use of these slower speeds, particularly 0.75x, for sections you find particularly challenging or fast.
Okay, but tell us a bit more about the science here. What is actually happening phonetically when native speech is slowed down? Why is it often so hard to distinguish individual sounds at normal speed?
Yeah, it's fascinating. It connects back to something called phones, the basic, distinct units of sound in a language.
Okay.
At normal conversational speed, native speakers do a lot of things unconsciously to make speech flow smoothly.
Right.
We reduce words going to becomes gonna. We link sounds together between words. An apple sounds like an apple. This is called liaison or co-articulation.
Right, sounds running together.
Exactly. And for a learner, this means that words that look completely separate and distinct on the written page, like digi, often merge into one fluid, sometimes unrecognizable sound mass in speech. Digi becomes dj.
That makes perfect sense. The individual words almost seem to disappear into each other. It becomes a blur of sound.
It really does. Imagine watching a video of bright colors flashing past really quickly. It's just a blur. Slowing down the audio is like hitting the slow motion button on that video.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly, you can start to pick out the individual reds, the blues, the greens. In speech, slowing it down lets you finally distinguish those separate phones, catch those word endings, hear how sounds are linked. It gives your brain the processing time it needs to isolate and analyze these individual sounds.
Without the pressure of the next word arriving instantly.
Precisely. It lets you verify the sounds you think you're hearing.
Ah, okay.
That's what they said.
So the recommended technique isn't just listening to everything slowed down all the time. It's more targeted.
Yes, very targeted. The cycle is, encounter a difficult section, maybe just a sentence or two. Listen to it at normal speed first. If it's too fast, slow it down maybe to 0.75x. Listen again, perhaps multiple times, until you achieve full comprehension at that slower speed.
Okay.
Then, crucially, immediately switch back to normal speed, 1x, and listen to that same section again.
Why immediately switch back?
That cycle is vital for building confidence and real-world skill. First, you prove to yourself, okay, I can understand this content when I have enough processing time. That reduces anxiety. But then, by immediately going back to normal speed, you force your brain to try and process it at the speed required for actual conversations.
So it's targeted training, demonstrating mastery at a slow pace, then pushing towards mastery at full speed.
Exactly. It prevents that panic response by showing you it is understandable, while still training you for the reality of natural speech.
Okay, that's a very practical technique. So we've covered consistency, enjoyment, using aids like subtitles wisely, focusing on the big picture, and strategically slowing down audio.
Right. We've built the consistent habit, the foundation, and we've established the scaffolding aids to help bridge comprehension gaps. Now we move into the next phase. Techniques that demand more intensive, active participation from you, the learner.
Getting more hands-on now.
Exactly. These methods are designed to significantly accelerate your comprehension gains because they force your brain into a much higher state of engagement. And tip 5 is central here. Practice active listening.
We touched on this earlier, the crucial difference between just passive hearing, like having English radio on in the background while you're cleaning the house.
Which has very limited benefit.
Right. Versus active listening, which is deliberate, focused engagement. Your goal is deep understanding of the specific material you're listening to right now.
Yes, precisely. And the source material doesn't just say listen actively. It provides concrete, actionable steps for how to achieve that deep engagement. It moves beyond just telling you to try harder.
Okay, so what are some of these actionable steps?
We can think of maybe 3 levels of engagement, starting with the easiest. Level 1, keyword notes. When listening to maybe a 30-second or 1-minute clip, just try to jot down the 3 or 4 most important words, usually nouns and verbs.
Just the core concepts.
Exactly. It forces you to identify the main topic.
Yeah.
Level 2, mental summary. Pause the audio every minute or so and try to summarize the main point of what you just heard in a single, well-formed English sentence in your head.
Okay. That forces me to really process the structure and the main argument, not just pick out isolated words.
Precisely. It checks your comprehension constantly. And then level 3, which perhaps provides the greatest depth of understanding, listen specifically for rhetorical markers and topic sentences.
What do you mean by rhetorical markers?
These are the signposts that speakers use to structure their arguments or narratives. Phrases like, first, we need to consider. Secondly, on the other hand. However. In conclusion.
The structural glue of the speech.
Exactly. If you train your ear to specifically catch those markers, you start to understand the flow and the structure of the speech, which is often much more helpful for overall comprehension than catching every single vocabulary word.
That makes a lot of sense. You understand the direction they're going.
Right. This kind of intensive, focused engagement drastically improves your comprehension skills much, much faster than passively playing hours and hours of background noise ever could.
So active listening is about quality over quantity. It transforms potentially hours of vague input into focused minutes of deep absorption. It prioritizes depth over sheer volume.
Perfectly summarized. Exactly. And speaking of intensive techniques that prioritize depth, tip 6 is one that consistently comes up in the source material as perhaps one of the most powerful tools in the entire language learner's arsenal.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's tip 6?
It's the shadowing technique.
Shadowing. Okay, that sounds intense. Maybe even a bit intimidating for some learners. It's not just repeating words, right? It's more like mirroring the speaker, exactly.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way to put it, mirroring. Yes, it is intense, but it's transformative. The reason it's so powerful is that it creates a direct synchronization between two absolutely critical skill sets for language learning.
Which are?
Auditory perception, how accurately your ear picks up the sounds, and your articulatory motor skills, how your mouth produces those sounds. Shadowing trains both simultaneously.
Your ear and your mouth working together.
Exactly. It trains you to hear more accurately and to speak more naturally at the same time. The goal is essentially to act like a conscious echo, or maybe a linguistic parrot mimicking everything you hear.
Okay, so how does the source recommend we actually do this, especially without getting completely overwhelmed by the speed of native speech?
Good question. You don't try to shadow a whole speech right away. You break it down into manageable steps. First, you select a very short, clear audio clip, maybe just 1 or 2 sentences to start, something spoken clearly.
Short and clear. Got it.
Then, you could approach it in phases. Phase 1 might be silent shadowing. Just listen to the short clip repeatedly, maybe closing your eyes, focusing only on the rhythm, the stress patterns, and the intonation, the musicality of the sentence. Don't even worry about the meaning yet.
Just the sound pattern.
Just the sound pattern. Phase 2 could be whisper shadowing. Play the audio clip again, and this time, whisper the words very quietly, trying to stay just slightly behind the speaker, mimicking their timing and rhythm.
Okay, whispering behind them. Why whispering?
It forces your mouth to start forming the shapes and movements required for the sounds, but without the pressure of full volume articulation or perfect pronunciation yet. It's a halfway step.
Makes sense.
And then phase 3 is the full shadowing, full volume copying. After listening to the clip, you pause the audio and immediately repeat exactly what the speaker said, trying to replicate everything.
And the goal here isn't just getting the words right, is it? It's copying the speaker's specific speed.
Yes.
Their intonations, the rise and fall of their voice, like for questions or emphasis, and their actual pronunciation of the words, including how they might link them together or reduce them.
Yes. Those are the 3 core focus areas you absolutely must try to copy: speed, intonation, and pronunciation. Now, the source material explicitly acknowledges that this process feels strange at first.
I can imagine. You probably feel quite silly doing it.
Absolutely. You might feel like a child mimicking an adult or just awkward talking along with a recording. But we really encourage you, the listener, to push past that initial resistance, that feeling of strangeness.
Why is it so vital to push through?
Because it is fundamentally retraining your brain. When you have to physically produce the rising intonation of an English question, or when you force your mouth to make the connected sound of gonna instead of enunciating going to clearly, your ear suddenly becomes hypersensitized to those specific features in the speech you hear from others. You stop filtering them out as just noise or fast talking.
So you start recognizing them as actual linguistic data points.
Precisely. It creates a feedback loop.
Yeah.
If you find you physically can't produce a particular sound or rhythm pattern accurately While shadowing,
Yeah.
it's a very strong indicator that you probably haven't been hearing it accurately in the first place. Shadowing acts as a diagnostic tool for your listening perception.
Wow, okay, so it's not just speaking practice, it's simultaneously testing and improving the accuracy of my auditory decoding. That's actually brilliant. It's combined training for ear and mouth.
It really is one of the most effective, albeit challenging techniques out there.
Okay, so once a learner starts getting comfortable with these more intensive active techniques like shadowing and focused active listening, what's next?
The next logical step, according to the sources, is to start diversifying the listening environment. You need to broaden the scope. Because let's face it, English isn't just one monolithic thing.
No, it definitely isn't.
It's a global language spoken with a huge variety of accents and styles. So achieving listening flexibility is paramount for real-world communication. And this is exactly where KIP 7 comes into play. Mix different accents.
This is so critical, I think, for practical application outside the classroom or textbook exercises. Most learners, naturally, start by training their ear almost exclusively on one specific dialect.
Usually American or British English, right?
Yeah, typically. Often it depends on the materials they use first, or maybe the accent of their first teacher, or the movies they watch. But relying solely on that one single accent model, well, it sets you up for difficulties later on. It's a massive limitation.
It really is. It creates a kind of auditory rigidity. Your brain gets trained to expect English to sound only like that one specific model.
And then what happens?
Then inevitably, that learner encounters a speaker from, say, Australia or Canada, or maybe Ireland, Scotland, South Africa, India.
The list goes on.
It does. And immediately they experience that same panic we discussed right at the beginning. Their brain defaults to thinking, wait, this isn't the English I learned. I can't understand this person.
Because the familiar sounds, the expected rhythm, the stress patterns they're used to, they're just different.
Exactly. They're absent or altered.
So what specifically changes across different accents that tends to throw learners off the most? Is it just pronunciation?
Pronunciation's a big part of it, especially vowel sounds. Think about how differently the vowel sound in words like car or water or dance can be pronounced in different accents. That alone can make words hard to recognize initially.
That's why vowel shifts.
But it's also about rhythm and stress. For example, Indian English often tends towards what's called syllable-timed rhythm, where each syllable gets roughly equal stress, whereas British or American English are typically stress-timed, meaning the time between stressed syllables is more regular, leading to unstressed syllables getting compressed or reduced.
Okay, so the musicality is different too.
Very different. Your ear has to learn to adapt, to work a little harder, to find the underlying structure of the language, regardless of the specific phonetic flavor or melody being applied on top.
So how do we, as learners, approach this? How do we introduce this diversity without just causing immediate overwhelm and frustration? Should I just jump straight into trying to understand, I don't know, a really thick Glaswegian accent in a fast-paced documentary?
Probably not the best starting point. That might be counterproductive. The strategy, like with subtitles, should be gradual and structured.
Okay, gradual exposure. How?
Start with maybe simpler, slower content delivered in a new accent you want to get used to. Perhaps find a newsreader with that accent, or a basic interview, or even children's programming, something where the speech is likely to be clearer and slower.
Build a reference point for that accent first.
Exactly. Once you've built that basic familiarity, that reference point, then you can gradually increase the speed and the complexity of the material you listen to in that accent. Watch interviews, podcasts, maybe eventually films featuring speakers with that accent.
The goal isn't necessarily to understand every accent perfectly overnight.
No, not at all. The goal is to train your ear to become more elastic, more flexible. You want to reach a point where hearing a different accent doesn't trigger panic. Your brain learns to filter out the surface-level accent variation and lock on to the core meaning underneath.
Flexibility is the key, preventing that cognitive overload when you step into a real multinational meeting or conversation.
That's the ultimate objective.
Okay, that makes the whole process sound much more manageable. It's about structured exposure, not just diving into random accent chaos. Right, now shifting gears completely for tip 9. Let's talk about a way to integrate listening practice that hopefully doesn't feel too much like hard work.
The fun method.
Exactly. Tip 9 is listen and repeat with songs.
Music is such a powerful tool for language learning. It's almost universally engaging, isn't it? And the source material really highlights it as a fantastic vehicle for listening practice. It's basically practice disguised as enjoyment.
Yeah, I love listening to music in languages I'm learning. The method here seems pretty straightforward and intuitive. Find an English song you genuinely like.
Has to be one you enjoy.
Right. Then maybe look up the lyrics online so you can follow along, and then just sing along with it. Repeat it. But what are the specific linguistic benefits we get from doing this beyond just having fun?
Oh, the benefits are actually incredibly specific and highly beneficial for listening skills and even speaking skills, too.
Okay, like what?
Well, first, rhythm and stress. Songs are absolutely brilliant for helping you catch the natural rhythm, the stress patterns, the beat of spoken English. These patterns can often be quite difficult to isolate and internalize just from listening to everyday, unpredictable conversation. But songs often exaggerate them or make them very regular.
Right. The melody and beat reinforce the language's natural cadence.
Exactly. Second, songs naturally help refine your pronunciation. Because you're trying to match the singer's sounds precisely, fitting them to a fixed beat and melody, it forces you to pay close attention to how sounds are formed and linked.
You have to hit the sounds at the right time.
You do. And third, because music is inherently memorable, think about how easily song lyrics get stuck in your head.
Oh, yeah, earworm.
Exactly. Because of that, the vocabulary, the common expressions, the idiomatic phrases used in the song tend to stick in your memory much better, too.
So it aids vocabulary retention.
Hugely. It introduces everyday language, slang, common sentence structures in a context that is naturally sticky and repetitive. You listen to songs you like multiple times, right?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
So those expressions and structures get absorbed much more deeply and certainly more effortlessly than if you just encountered them once in a textbook chapter or heard them briefly in a passing conversation.
So it's like high repetition practice, but it bypasses that feeling of tedious effort because you're just enjoying the music.
That's it, exactly. You're simultaneously practicing listening for rhythm, stress, pronunciation, vocabulary, sentence flow, all while you're just singing along and having a good time. It's incredibly efficient.
Okay, 9 actionable tips down. We've covered a lot of ground, from daily habits to advanced techniques like shadowing and using music.
We have. We've covered 9 highly practical techniques, strategies you can really implement. But as the source material strongly emphasizes, none of them, not a single one, will ultimately work without the 10th, and arguably the most crucial element.
And that is?
The right mindset. Which brings us to tip 10. Be patient and keep going.
Yes, the necessary reality check. Because while we've talked about strategies to improve faster, the truth is achieving true mastery in any complex skill, especially language listening, it takes time.
It takes time, and it takes consistent, deliberate effort over that time.
The learning curve is never just a smooth, straight line going upwards, is it?
Never. Managing your own expectations is absolutely crucial here. The source material really makes a point of normalizing the learning journey. It emphasizes that some days you'll feel fantastic progress. You'll listen to something and think, wow, I understood almost everything.
Those are good days.
They are. But other days you might listen to something similar, maybe even easier, and feel completely lost. You might feel like you've actually gone backwards, like you've taken 10 steps back. Yeah, that feeling of regression can be really discouraging.
It can be. But the key insight here is that that feeling, that sense of being lost or having regressed, it's not usually a sign of failure. It's often a sign that your brain is actually grappling with something new, trying to process a higher degree of complexity, maybe integrating different skills.
So feeling lost can actually be a sign of active engagement, of your brain working hard, not a sign that you should just give up.
Precisely. It means you're pushing your boundaries. And this is where what the sources called the investment philosophy comes in. It helps you navigate those inevitably difficult days.
Okay, the investment philosophy. How does that work?
It fundamentally shifts your focus. Instead of judging your success based only on the immediate, tangible results of a single listening session, did I understand it perfectly today? You reframe it.
Yeah.
You learn to view every single minute you spend actively listening to English.
Regardless of how successful it felt.
Regardless of whether you felt successful or lost in that particular moment. You view that time as a valid, worthwhile investment in your future skill, like depositing money or time into your English listening skill bank.
Exactly like that. If you felt totally lost during your 15-minute podcast listening session today, that session still counts. It still exposed your brain to authentic language, to new sound patterns, maybe new vocabulary, and it forced your brain to struggle. And that struggle, that effort, is precisely what leads to growth over time.
The effort itself is the deposit, not just the feeling of easy comprehension.
That's the core idea. The effort is cumulative. The source material is very confident on this point. If you stay consistent, that tip 1, Remember, even just 10-15 minutes daily, and you consistently apply even just one or two of these active techniques we've discussed, then results are essentially guaranteed. Because the human brain is wired to adapt. It cannot help but adapt and improve when faced with that kind of regular focused stimulus over time.
So the key is consistency of effort, not demanding perfect comprehension every single day.
Exactly. Embrace the struggle. See it as part of the process, not a sign to stop. Be patient with yourself.
That's a really encouraging way to frame it. Okay, this has been a really comprehensive deep dive, I think. We've managed to extract a pretty powerful roadmap for anyone wanting to truly master English listening skills.
We really have. We've covered 10 distinct proven strategies, and we can kind of group them into 3 major areas, all designed to help you move from just passively hearing sounds to actively comprehending meaning.
Right. So first, we have the foundational habits. That was tip 1, listen every day for consistency. And tip 2, choose topics you enjoy to maintain motivation and lower resistance.
Absolutely. You have to build that consistent low-effort base first. That fuels everything else.
Then we moved into the strategic scaffolding and the really active techniques. That included things like tip 3, using subtitles wisely, treating them as a temporary bridge, not a crutch.
And tip 4, focusing on the big picture, not every single word, to reduce anxiety and focus on communication.
And tip 8, slowing down the audio strategically as a tool to dissect difficult passages.
Right. And then the really active ones. Tip 5, practice active listening techniques like note-taking or summarizing to force deeper engagement.
And the powerhouse, tip 6, the shadowing technique for that synchronized ear and mouth training, copying speed, intonation, and pronunciation.
Exactly. And finally, we talked about expanding the listening environment. That was tip 7. Mix different accents to build flexibility and avoid panic when hearing unfamiliar speech patterns.
And tip 9, using music, listening, and singing along with songs as a fun, engaging, and highly repetitive way to practice rhythm, pronunciation, and vocabulary.
Perfect summary. And you see how every single piece of advice, every technique, ultimately connects back to those 3 core keys we mentioned at the start.
Which were?
Be consistent in your practice, be active in your engagement, and genuinely try to enjoy the material you're learning with.
Consistency, active engagement, and enjoyment, the foundations. So, we've laid out the definitive roadmap based on the sources we studied. We've distilled the science of skill acquisition, really, into these 10 practical nuggets of advice. The what and the how are clear.
They are. But if we connect all this back to the bigger picture for you listening right now, the real choice isn't just knowing how you could listen more effectively in theory.
Right, knowledge isn't enough.
No. The crucial decision is, which specific, small, consistent action are you actually going to commit to starting? Maybe even today.
Making it real.
Exactly. You don't have to suddenly implement all 10 tips tomorrow. You don't have to start shadowing an entire hour-long speech. The real transition from just having this theoretical knowledge to actually building the applied skill, it always starts with that one small, deliberate first step.
So that's the challenge we leave you with, your immediate challenge. Look back at these 10 tips we've discussed. Pick just one that resonates with you, one that feels manageable to start with right now.
Maybe it's finding a 10-minute podcast on a topic you love and just listening actively for keywords today.
Or maybe it's turning on the English subtitles for just the first 5 minutes of that show you're watching tonight and then turning them off.
Or perhaps it's finding the lyrics to your favorite English song and trying to shadow just the chorus, just 2 or 3 lines later today.
Whatever it is, commit to that single small action. Take that first step. And then notice how that small investment starts to pay off, how it builds momentum.
Keep listening, keep learning, keep making those small, consistent investments.
And keep improving your English. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.